Hello and welcome. We are back once again for another All for United match review. What a week it's been since the last week we were here. Last week we came in and it was a buoyant mood. We were sat there rejoicing the return of Benny to All for United as we spoke about all the ways in which we're going to dismantle Liverpool. Then I lost a weekend. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but one of those horrible moments where everything seems to have just disappeared entirely. And I woke up on Monday morning and nobody's got a clue what went on. But anyway, we got all the way to Real Betis, and now we're going to take a little look at that game and just sort of discuss really how we feel the first leg went, because I feel like it's put us in quite a commanding position. So, John, we'll come to you first of all on this one. How did you feel the start of the game went? I mean, Wout did get the goal, get the ball in the back of the net, was offside thanks to Pastor Fred, but it was a really good start to the game, wasn't it? What was your thoughts of the opening 5 or 6 minutes before the Rashford goal?
I thought we set out on the front foot, and that obviously we had to see a response for in the weekend. But for me, it was it was a bit unlucky with the offside goal, that from Fred. But it was a positive start from United, which I think we would have all expected, and that, and I think in many ways following the weekend, so you'd rather be at home second leg. But I think after the weekend, maybe it's a blessing that it was at home first game rather than away to Betis, so it allowed us to go on the front foot. And obviously the fact they named an unchanged 11 as well, it's almost like he said, well, you messed it up at weekend, you got to do it today, basically. And it shows faith in his team and that. And I thought overall the first 5 minutes lead up to Rashford goal was positive for United.
It certainly was. It was a very good start, and we'll throw this one straight out there, Jaden. There you go. You wanted your shout out. Welcome. Nice to have you on the show. So again, today we've got two Dans because we like that. So we've got Dan and Dan. We've got the obvious Dan who sat right next to me here, and then we've got not so obvious Dan who is Dan but calls himself RP Field. So we'll see how we go. But RP Dan, what was your thoughts on the fact that he named an unchanged side? Because John mentioned that, and I found that really interesting. I can almost imagine that he's stood there in the changing room and said, look, this is your chance to go out there and show that you are not that team that went and lost to Liverpool. This is your chance to get that shirt back effectively. And if we have the same sort of performance, then don't expect to be starting the week after.
Yeah, so I was on the after show for the weekend that didn't happen, and we was discussing how Ten Hag would in essence push forward going forward and what he would do. I personally think he made the right choice. So send the same 11 out, tell them that there needs to be a response from that 11, because I think it's the team that's got us to, in essence, 3 losses in 33. So they deserve the chance. There was just that niggling doubt that if they didn't do it, the fringe players might start to think, right, so when do I get my chance? Because we've just been drubbed by Liverpool. It's as bad as it's going to get, and there was no casualties from it. So I think in the end it worked out really well, because I think I said that they'd have to go and win 4-0 to show that the faith was right. And I mean, 4-1's that'll do. I thought we started really well. I have to say that I think sort of 15, 20 minutes in, they started targeting Dallo and Anthony a little bit, and that's where the success came. But yeah, I in terms of the selection, I was quite happy with it. Go with the same team, go and give them chance to make amends as such. And I don't think there's a better way to respond to a 7-0 than a 4-1 in Europe. I think that's pretty good. We can't be unhappy with that.
I think I absolutely have to agree with you on that one. And Mickey's spot on here as well. Clint came out from Ten Hag saying people forget we went on a 22-game run with only 1 loss before Liverpool. It was a defeat. Unfortunately, that's the way of the world at the moment. If you lose a game to Liverpool, it's bad. If you lose a game to Liverpool 7-0, it's never going to go down well. And everything else that went before it wouldn't be forgotten necessarily, but it's certainly numbed for sure. So Dan number 2, RD Dan, I suppose we could call you with your Red Devils TV there. What was your thoughts of that decision by Ten Hag to start with the team that he started with, and how did you think the response from those United players was in that first few minutes?
I felt like it was the perfect way to bounce back, that's for sure. I felt like the players looked up for it. I mean, when was the last time United actually went for goal for the first 10 minutes straight and being being very relentless and stuff? So it was a good few 10 minutes, I'd say so. Obviously, we scored the offside goal, and then obviously Rashford got the first goal, and it was a brilliant shot. I mean, no keeper in the world saving that. So it was a brilliant shot and a brilliant way to start off the game. But like you've already said, that I felt like that Real Betis were targeting the right-hand side because Dalot seems to be very dependent on his winger dropping back to give him that support. When, for me, Wan-Bissaka, obviously he came on in the second half, but Wan-Bissaka seems to be very confident, very calm when it comes to defensive work rate by himself. So I think the fact is as well that Antony and Dalot seem to be a bit of a bad pairing, because Antony doesn't drop back enough for me and doesn't help out his fullback. I mean, that's where, I think it was 2 or 3 of Liverpool's goals came from last Sunday. So I feel like that Ten Hag needs to start thinking about that. Either you play a different winger over Antony or you play Wan-Bissaka over Dalot. That's my only take on it. But I felt like United started off strong, but then we seemed a bit too relaxed because of how easy it was at the start. And then they gradually got back into the game, and then before half time, it's 1-1 and nearly 2-1 to Real Betis because of De Gea's poor distribution.
We're going to move on to the second half there. Sorry, you caught me unawares, but absolutely. And we will definitely get to all of those points. But Big Johnny K, we got to ask you about this Rashford goal, because the kid's on fire, isn't he? He is on absolute fire. I mean, goodbye, phone. It was lovely having you. I think looking at his stats, he's on 26 goals in all competitions, which is out of the top 5 leagues in Europe. It's the 3rd best. Only Erling Haaland with 33 and Kylian Mbappe with 30 has got more. That's astonishing from a guy who, like, we would have thought maybe might get 15 to 20 goals in a season if he was having a good season. He's far surpassing anything. And he's scoring from all over the pitch. And the goal last night, just an absolute thing of beauty, wasn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, 26 goals for the season now. I think it's something like 22 in 26 is the World Cup or something. No, it's a phenomenal record, and there aren't many players who are in better form than him at the moment. It's the consistency that you just he's not getting hat tricks or anything, but he's getting 1 or 2 virtually every single game, and they're important goals as well, and they're brilliant goals. And just to touch upon that goal, the way that obviously Bruno crossed it. It was great thinking by Casemiro to take the free kick quickly originally, which shows, again, like us being on the front foot in the first few minutes, and that Bruno's cross wasn't the best, but then it came out to Rashford, and it's just like that drop of the shoulder, and then when he's facing, the defender on the floor and the goalkeeper, it's like the only way you can score is by putting your boot through it and, hitting the target. And if you aim high with power, then, it's going to be almost impossible to save it. So for me, it was another fantastic finish from Rashford, and they obviously was on the front foot from the start.
Absolutely. RP, Dan. Again, he had a great goal, and if you've got anything you want to add about Rashford there, please do feel free. But as the half moved on, United were in control. They had all of the chances, all of the ball, really. Real Betis were being swept aside. There were 2 chances for Weghorst, 1 for Rashford. All 3 of them were denied. Probably the best chance was for Wout. He would have been offside anyway had it gone in. I won't ask the Weghorst question yet. I'm going to leave that till we get to the end of that one, I suppose. But again, to have had that level of chances, we really should have, before the equaliser turned up, we really should have been at least 2-3-0 to the good, shouldn't we?
Yeah. So just on the Rashford thing, it sounds weird to say, but I'm not overly shocked with the season he's having. Because if you look at 1920, 2021, he was absolutely flying. And people forget it because he was so, off the pace last season. So he's just sort of kicked on from the two really good seasons before. But yeah, in terms of leading up to them scoring, I think we've been guilty of wasting quite a few chances, not just this year, but just in general for the last couple of seasons, where we've had chances where we should maybe close out games better, and we haven't. I thought, honestly, for 25 minutes, we were fantastic. It looked like it could be 2 or 3-0. And then, like I say, I don't know what changed. And I'll disagree with Dan a little bit in terms of Anthony. So I agree 100% against Liverpool. He was awful at tracking back. And the whole team, I think it's the lowest we've ran since the Brentford game, which wasn't a shock when I saw the stat afterwards. But prior to that, Anthony was getting a lot of credit because he was breaking up the play. He had high recovery tackles on the halfway line and in front of the defender pretty much all season. So I genuinely think he is good at it. For whatever reason, he just didn't want to do it in the Liverpool game. But I agree 100%. So I would say at the start of the season, I was more of a Dalot fan in terms of I thought he was playing well. There was no reason to take him out of the team. He started fantastic. Ever since the World Cup, he's not been on it. I think Wan-Bissaka's earned his starting place now. So hopefully against Southampton, Wan-Bissaka starts. But I do think that probably 25 minutes into that game, someone on the Betis coaching staff or the manager has saw something and gone, we need to target that side. And it started to bring them a lot of joy and it turned the game. So, yeah, it's just one of them. We can be a little bit careless. I was reading a stat. We had something like 7 big chances in the game. In essence, we could have scored 7 or 8 goals that game. We'll move on a bit to that later, I'd imagine, when Anthony ships over the bar when he could pass. But, yeah, I just felt we was a little bit timid in front of goal, a bit shy. But ultimately, I do think they tactically changed a little bit, and that's what brought them back into the game. I think it was credit to Pellegrini for noticing it, to be honest.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The equaliser came. Now, before we get into the defensive mishaps or anything that should have happened there, I want to ask a very simple question, because I watched that goal and I thought, oh, blimey, it's come out of nowhere. And then I saw the replay and I'm like, now for me, and I genuinely don't feel like enough was made out of this, but that was handball, was it not? I mean, the ball hits his chest, it rolls down the arm. Now, I know the rules state if it hits your body and then it hits the arm, it's not. But I think the difference with that is it's not hit his chest and then hit his arm. His arm's been brought in deliberately, as you do, to chest the ball, and then it's rolled down it. I figured that would be a handball because the ball hit his hand. But I fully accept that I might well be in the wrong here. So I would love to know what you three guys made of it. So we'll kick off with you, Dan, there. What do you reckon? Was it handball?
It's one of them. It really is one of them. It's because I listened to the way they explained it at halftime about the rules and stuff, and for me it is a handball. But the way that they explained it for VAR and stuff, why it wasn't given as handball, is that the player wasn't involved with direct play or something. But it was like only the goal scorer who, if that was to happen to the goal scorer, then it'd be redeemed as offside. But because that player made the cross and play went on, then that's down to the referee and not down to VAR. But I'm just there like, United, it's not the first time in Europe this season United have been called for a dodgy VAR decision. Like, I think back to the Real Sociedad game with that penalty. Like, they just need to sort out the handball rule, I think. I think if it touches your arm, whether it's intentional or not, it should be either put for a drop kick for the goalkeeper or something, or it's just giving us a foul, because I think that the way that, because obviously he had his arm down, so it wasn't like it was deliberate, and the ball rolled down his chest and then went onto the like elbow type of his arm, and it was just, for me it is a handball, but thankfully United just got the job done with and proved that we don't need a dodgy VAR decision to lose a game.
John, what would you have gone for on that one? Handball or not handball?
Well, for me, he wouldn't have been able to control in the way he did. I know it came off his chest, but perhaps one of, like you mentioned, going down the arm, it probably allowed him to control it. But the problem is, as Dan explained, it all comes back down to the rules, doesn't it? If he controls it, uses his arm and fires it in, the goal's cancelled. But because he passed it, it's the same with, I was on a show with you a few weeks back and we discussed like the Middlesbrough FA Cup goal last season, for example. And, and it's just, and obviously Rashford has had a couple goals disallowed this season when he's accidentally touched the arm and then gone in. So for me, it's, I think it highlights how stupid the rules are a lot of the time. They'd say if he takes a shot himself and scores, it's not a goal, but because he passed it and another player scores, then it counts. So unfortunately, those are the rules. So it has a right to, and unfortunately, so but yeah, I do think it was handball and that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, isn't it, RP Dan? Because I think it's the rules more than anything else. It's the fact that if the goal scorer does that, then they're going to disallow it. If the person that gives him the ball and gets the assist does it, it's not. It's like one of those ones where they go, it wasn't enough for a penalty. But if you give it anywhere else on the pitch, it's a free kick. But because it's in the penalty area, they go, oh, no, that's not enough. Then surely it's not enough for a free kick. Why is it that these rules aren't just applied consistently across the pitch, no matter where you are and what situation you're in? Because it's just confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, so my issue was the explanation on the TV. So the explanation on the TV is completely wrong in terms of what they said. So they said that because, in essence, it had hit his hand and then he passed it and they scored, it couldn't be ruled out. But it can. It can be ruled out on the basis if they deem it deliberate. And I genuinely don't understand how you look at the replay and it's not deemed deliberate. He's literally cushioned his arm down because he knows that if he miscontrols it, it's going to go back into his path. And if he in essence, if you chop his arm off or he doesn't put his arm there, I think it bounces straight through to Dalot or De Gea or whoever. So for me, despite the rules, it can definitely be disallowed. They've just got to deem it deliberate. And I think this is where you would argue that players need to be in VAR rooms and stuff like that. Because any player that controls the ball like that will go, yeah, that's handball. Because he knows where his arm is. If it hits his hand, it's benefited him. So it's got to be deliberate. So, I mean, when I first saw the replay, I was not convinced we was going to concede. I was like, right, we've got lucky there because it's handball. So when they give it, I was just I'm just a bit baffled. And then when the explanation was, well, because he passed it, it was obviously they didn't think it was deliberate. But for me, it's deliberate. He's literally tucked his arm in as the ball's come down. So I don't see how you could say it's not deliberate. He could easily keep his arms up. He hasn't got to tuck it in. So it's that silhouette issue. And again, not to sound like one of them Man United fans, but the Martinez penalty that even put us in the Barcelona leg and the pressure on us. And another Spanish team, another weird decision. It doesn't look great in my opinion. But thankfully, it didn't matter in the end. But it definitely could have.
And that's the thing, it could have. And I'm with you. And the irony of the situation is if it hits the body and his arm's out here and then it bounces and hits that,
it would be handball.
But I would argue that wasn't deliberate because he's deliberately put his arm out of the way so he can chest the ball.
His arm's in more of an unnatural position by tucking it in to sort of bend down and control than it is if he was out here. So
it goes back to the Middlesbrough one last season. It's like I was making a save for that one.
Yeah, basically dribbling it at that point. I can remember seeing the picture afterwards. I was just like, Jesus,
that was far. The Middlesbrough one was far worse than the one yesterday.
I thought it was handball. I thought first replay, I was like, yeah, that's going to be given as handball. He's tucked his arm in to control it with his arm. But no,
And it's like, and it goes back to like Rashford this season, like at the moment, Everton, where it deflects off who is it, Pickford, and it touches his body part and slightly brushes the arm. He can't do anything else. He puts in and he uses
I think I can remember that because if he would have crossed it to Fernandes, I think Fernandes was in at the back post, it would have been a goal. But because he scored, it's not a goal. It's such a strange rule. It's just another one of them anomaly rules that we fix.
Yeah.
And again, here, that the hands are in the silhouette of the body. If you put his hands up, then it's not in a natural position. Unless, of course, you're Beyonce and you're singing all the single ladies, in which case you've got to put your hands up because she tells you to right at the start. But it's an absolute madness. The rules, everybody's having a go at VAR. It's not VAR, is it? It's the rules. The way they're asking them to apply it, it's got to be
the interpretation of the law. Yeah.
And it's just a nightmare. Like, the technology is not being used in the right way. To be honest, it's like using a knife and fork to eat a burger. It's not what it's designed for. It's not what it's designed for. But RP, Dan, you might as well continue what we're going. You were saying about the it didn't affect us in the end. Any other complaints with the goal, or did you just think it was a well-taken equaliser?
I'm trying not to be on the bandwagon of blaming players.
Luke Shaw's to blame.
There was quite a few issues. Luke Shaw didn't tuck over quick enough. David Day was in the wrong position completely in terms of where you'd want your goalkeeper. He should have been 2 yards to the other side. He seemed to dive a little bit slow, but I think he saw it late. But yeah, there's been a few stats flying around. I think David De Gea has now conceded 8 goals in the last 9 shots on target, something like a minus 3.2 xG. He's just having a tough time at the minute, but I don't think he's being helped by those in front of him. Luke Shaw did not have a very good game against Liverpool. I thought he was good yesterday, but he was at fault. Dan's right. He should have been over quicker. He's literally, it was like he didn't have the energy to get out, but he should have got across a lot quicker to the man. It's a good finish as well, to be fair.
Would you stick with that, Dan? Would you blame that on Luke Shaw, or would you blame that on De Gea?
I do blame it on Luke Shaw because I've watched that goal back, because when I did my match reaction, I was like, was I being a bit too harsh on Luke Shaw? And I watched the replay back, and Martinez and Varane are covering pretty much 2 players each of Betis players that are getting forward. And then you've got Perez out on the wing, and where's Luke Shaw? Luke Shaw is literally holding hands with Martinez, not marking his man. And I mean, you can't discredit the goal. The goal was brilliant. I mean, it was low. I've said many times that I feel like David De Gea's biggest issues or weaknesses is when it's coming for crosses and low-driven shots, because he can't get down to the floor quick enough, in my opinion. And whether you say that he was late to see the ball or not, I feel like you know that the player's not going to go near post. And I think that De Gea needs to be a bit more reactionary, a lot quicker, because it's also a bit down to common sense. You're like, well, he's not going to shoot near post, so he's obviously going to shoot wide and try and trouble me. So you get down there quicker and try and make that save. But I think that it was literally in the corners of corners. So I don't think De Gea is going to save that. So I'm not going to go 2 in on De Gea, but that statistic that Dan's just said about how he's conceded 8 in the last 9 shots on target, and his distribution hasn't been up to it for the last 2 or 3 games now, I think it is starting to be worrying that De Gea's confidence might be slipping again. And we saw what happened a few seasons ago when Dean Henderson was the backup goalkeeper, and out of nowhere, De Gea lost his confidence. Then Dean Henderson was in the squad, but I don't think that we can drop De Gea for Tom Heaton or Jack Butland, because I don't think they're good enough. So I think De Gea is a bit shot for confidence at the moment, and hopefully he'll get back to it.
Is there not also, a point to make there about the fact that, yes, this statistic might well be, as you say, 8 out of the last 9 shots on target, but that's a 7-0 loss to Liverpool. It was 1 game. If it hadn't have been for the absolute calamity of that game and how the defence, everybody in the game just went to sleep in that one. And what are you supposed to do? At the end of the day, we've all been in those sort of games or might be the unfortunate one who was stood against the wall whilst all these balls just get whacked at you. And in the end, you are a bit just like, oh, just hide away from it. Do we think that maybe it's a bit harsh to judge him over 2 games when you consider that it's, if that was over 4 or 5 games?
I've got another lovely stat for you.
Excluding the Liverpool game, in De Gea's last 4 performances, he's conceded 3 goals. In the last 4 games, excluding the Liverpool game.
So he's currently ranked 21st of 20 keepers for shot saving this season.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? He's 21st of 20.
Yeah. So a backup keeper is doing better than him for shots saved. So has pushed him out the top 20. So that is my big worry.
To be fair, though, that's like because they've played like 2 games, so they're going to have a better ratio than that.
That's on a minimum of 5 appearances. So I understand that it's a small pool, but normally I would go off the eye test, not stats. So
yeah,
well, we do.
I do think De Gea is a bit shot for confidence at the moment.
Like, did he get save of the month from?
Yeah, for Leicester. That was a brilliant save.
So the eye test on some games, he's been fantastic, and he's kept the Leicester game in particular. We could have been 2-0 down if you want for De Gea. So I just think with De Gea, it's the same thing. You sort of look at it and you think he's a little bit weak at that.
Maybe there's been a bit of there's been a little bit of hangover since maybe the cup win, possibly.
I genuinely don't think it's helping with his contract situation, to be honest, because it's very much up in the air.
It's interesting that you say that because it's kind of like because we were here in January, they were close to agreeing something. Now in March, and you're just like, well, we haven't heard anything.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything official from the club. It seems to be more paper talk, like rumours. So what is the offer? Is there an offer? And he's got to be playing on De Gea's mind. Is he going to be at Old Trafford next season? Will he be number 1? He knows he's under a bit of pressure. We've been linked with Costa, David Raya. He's in a tough situation, to be fair. And I think he'll play till the end of the season as number 1, 100%.
He does. I still think do that.
Yeah. I still think he'll do what he's very good at, which is.
It's like with the De Gea contract situation as well. Is that a lot of people are saying that because the club has not been sold yet, that might be like postponing like contract negotiations and stuff. But hasn't Garnacho just signed a new contract?
I don't think it's over the line yet, but it's
not over the line yet.
One sticking point, I think.
So maybe that is the case then with the club not being sold, the Glazers.
Well, you know, Rashford would be signing on soon as well, so fingers crossed they go quicker.
Well, what's this possible wage cap as well that Erik ten Hag wants to implement with is it like 200,000 a week or something? Wants to be capped the figure?
I think we've spoke about this on the channel before. I agree with that 100%. I think being paid £200,000 a week and play for Man United should be enough for any professional footballer. If that means we miss out on Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, I don't care. I would prefer to have a footballer that wants to come and play for the club than one that wants 400. You look back at Lukaku, Sanchez. I wouldn't say Pogba because I do think Pogba did want to play for United, but obviously the contract was massive. And you just think, did they actually really want to come? Sanchez in particular, I don't think did. And he just wanted a massive contract. And we need to get away from that. I would much prefer to have 10 Wout Weghorsts than another Sanchez.
And I think that's the thing. You talk about the contracts, Garnacho, whatever his contract is going to be, it's going to be a fraction, really, of what the top earners are going to be getting at Old Trafford. Rashford is a no-brainer. You know, if there's a chance to get that guy a contract, then they're going to give it. It doesn't matter who it is, whether you ask the Glazers or whether you ask any of the potential people that would take over.
They're going to want it.
Yes, we'll give it to him. David De Gea, who knows? It's a bit more of a gamble. And I think what you're saying there, Dan, is quite true. That actually it could well be playing on his mind, because if he doesn't feel like he's got the full backing of the manager,
Well, I think the Ten Hag interview today is telling. He's refused to criticise him. He's sort of backed him and said that it could have been the ball, it could have been the wind, it could have been the surface. He's not chucking him under the bus. So he's trying to. Maybe De Gea might feel like he's a little bit on trial till the end of the season. He's got to improve to be part of the squad next season.
I think also it is worth noting that he had, for the first part of this season, we're looking at January, we were in this situation where we were like, well, yeah, we are more solid defensively, and in fairness to Hay, his distribution has improved a bit this season. Not perfectly, not like Alisson or Edison levels, but in terms of compared to what he was doing previously, actually his distribution had improved a bit. But for some reason, over the last few games, as Dan mentioned, they're starting to go back to his old ways a little bit. What has brought that on, I don't know. But I think
the problem
it's
there, John,
interesting.
if you look at what's just been put here,
Yeah.
to renew the contract for De Gea, should we break the Ronaldo rule? Poor distribution, his mistakes, can't command the box. We could have been 2-1 down at halftime. And I don't know that would have changed the mentality of the players coming out. I don't think it would. But that could have been a nightmare because, there's no other way to put it. I've been a big fan of David De Gea, but it was an awful ball. And it very nearly came back and bit him on the backside. He just about managed to get it onto the post and sort of dug himself out of a hole of his own creation there. So, John, do you see him being here next season? Do you see David De Gea being our number 2? Because I think he'd make an excellent number 2 without any shadow of a doubt. But I think
it's getting to the point now, Barry, where I was sure that he was going to be our number 1 next season. But I just look at his general performances. I watched the game last night. I watched the West Ham FA Cup game. I was at the Leicester game as well, so I've seen it firsthand. For me, his distribution has never been great, but it has been off the last couple of games. And for me, I'm beginning to think myself now, if this is going to continue, there have been some talks about, I think it's Raya at Brentford, possibly. It might be that we do look at maybe a new goalkeeper in the summer, possibly. Obviously, it depends on, new owners and how much money we have to spend there, because I would have thought the Ten Hag's priorities might be, obviously a number 9 and possibly a midfielder. But I do think he'll look at goalkeeper potentially, and I think I wouldn't say it's definite that he's going to go, but we're in this limbo. He's not signing a new contract, but no, is there concrete proposals say that we definitely want a new number 1. But I think there's a possibility that after we get like a striker in and possibly another midfielder, maybe the goalkeeper might be the next one on the list. But yeah, I think if things continue the way they are, we might have a new number 1 next season.
Yeah, I don't think the goalkeeper's top of the list necessarily, but interesting comment here by Man U winners. Limiting salaries shows Ten Hag's naivety and lack of understanding of football business reality. And anyways, it's not even his decision. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if it is his decision, actually. I think if Erik Ten Hag says, I don't want that player at that amount of money, I don't think they're going to argue with him necessarily at the moment. He's got the air of somebody who could command the ear of the people making these decisions. And I like I say, in Ten Hag we trust. I'm not convinced, but you could be right. Who am I to assume I know what goes on behind the doors of Old Trafford? I have absolutely no idea. If any of us did know, would be paid a lot more than we are now. Dan in the top corner, I'm going to have to ask you this question because we came out second half, and as has been the case so many times this season, out we come. And again, a different United again. We started with a lot more pace, a lot more precision, and a lot more attack in our game than we ended the first half with. And the reason why I'm starting with you is because he basically said you wouldn't have played, you may not play Anthony because he doesn't track back enough. But what a goal that was to get us back in the lead, because it's what he does. I'm surprised more people haven't noticed it now. Gets the ball, comes in on the left-hand side, comes in on his left, and curls it in the top corner.
Can I just rephrase you on that? Because you said that's what he does, what Anthony did with that goal. I think that's what he only does. He doesn't do anything else apart from cutting in that left-hand side and shooting far post. And yes, I won't discredit it. Brilliant goal, and it gets us the lead. But I'm starting to get very frustrated with Anthony that he's becoming such a one-trick pony. And I feel like a lot of people aren't really talking about it enough. And I just think that people moan about Sancho not having a left foot, but they don't say about Antony not having a right foot. And I feel like that unless Antony is on the left hand side when he's creating crosses and playing like as a supporting winger, if he's playing as that inverted winger, as soon as he gets past that first player, he will instantly shoot. And it's frustrating because, yes, it was a great goal, but he had 5 shots in the entire game, and all 5 shots were around that same area. He cut inside on that left-hand side and just shot it. And I feel like the reason Antony isn't really succeeding in the Premier League this season, obviously I know it's his first season, he's still adapting and stuff, and he's going to develop as time goes on. But I feel like that after, I don't know if I'll ask you a question. So since Antony's debut, when he scored that goal against Arsenal, have you ever seen him in the Premier League with his amount of spaces he got against that Arsenal goal?
I'm the host. I'm not going to answer that question straight away.
When he was through on goal at the Emirates and effed it up.
No, but what I mean is like when he was literally by himself. Like he always has a player on him. Like unless he's beating someone for pace on like the counter attack or something. I mean, like where United are building up possession, the team's sat back, and then Antony was out on the right by himself. Zinchenko wasn't marking him in that game, and then Antony cut inside and shot on that left foot. So, and I think in the Premier League, especially now, that fullbacks know that that's the only trick that Antony can do. And I think that's why he's being quite wasteful in the Premier League. And that's why I think that tracking back for Antony it needs to be very important, because for me, even though Dalot is good at going forward, I still don't trust Dalot fully defensively. And that's just my opinion. I feel a lot more comfortable when Wan-Bissaka is in the back line over Dalot. But that's just my opinion. I feel like that, like I said before, that I think Dalot relies on his winger a lot when it comes to supporting him.
But to be fair to him, he does do a really good merry-go-round as well. But it does upset a few people. I mean, it's interesting. We'll get your thoughts as well, Dan, on Antony. I'm just going to extend it slightly with what Randon's put in here, which is imagine telling Rashford he's not getting any more than 200k. To be honest, I don't think he'd be all that fast in the grand scheme of things.
I think he's on around that at the moment.
And I'd like to see performance-based wages instead of salary cap. So taking in mind that question and that point, I mean, I can't physically see a world in which performance-based wages would work, because, I mean, who judges that as to how you get the performance-based wage? What is it on? Do you mean by goals and that sort of thing?
There'll be things like if Rashford scores 20 goals in the season, he'll get an extra 2 million.
Or like minutes played or something like that.
Which would make sense. You know, that's a reasonable thing to go for. But if your base wage is £200,000, you can still throw those things in. Nobody's going to whinge. If you turn around and go, Rashy, right, you're going to give you 200 grand a year. But if you go and score another 20 goals for us this season, we'll give you £2 million, no problem whatsoever.
Right, and it could be for things like also, let's say for the Gea, it might be that of every clean sheet you get an extra, 500k or something, just something like
that. I'll get a clean sheet. Jesus Christ.
I think it'll be like, I'll tell you what, every time you get the ball to a Man United player, we'll give you another tenner. And just build up time and time again. And every time you get somebody else,
distribution, every pass you make that's accurate, you get a tenner. You'll still be pinging balls very quickly.
Starting to go to a
if you pass the ball on to Weghorst and you get him to jump, we'll give you $1 million.
Amazing. It could work brilliantly. But
I won't say that, though, in very slight defence of him. He does play that long ball to Weghorst. Weghorst doesn't always jump for it, though. That's another issue. So that will do his statistics down a little. But then again,
we're going to get to Wout. Yeah. Wout is definitely on the list. But Dan, Anthony, what was your thought on the goal? And again, with these wages, would you have gone with that? Would you say performance-based is a good thing?
So the Anthony thing's interesting to me. So I've read a stat that he's now the second or third highest goal scorer in the team.
It would not surprise me.
I think
Yeah,
I think
seven.
Fernandez might be above him with 8, and he's got 7. So he's definitely like doing a good job. I can remember a player from I'm a little bit older than some. Ian Robin used to cut in on his left and smash it in the top corner constantly, and he basically did it for an entire career. And if he can get that good at it, I don't think he will, but it'd be nice if he could. Then I'm not really bothered, to be honest. I do agree. I personally don't think he's got the pace to be getting in these one-on-ones. It's just not his game. He seemed to get caught quite a few times when he could have got in yesterday. He just lacks that real dynamic pace. He genuinely wants to be up against the defender to try and take him on and get past him. It doesn't always work out. He's still a bit raw.
To be fair, Dan, sorry to interrupt, but Anthony at the moment reminds me of like a raw Mahrez type, where he's not relatively quick, but he loves to cut in on that left foot and have a shot.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But
good at it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Ian Robin made a career of literally cutting on his left, and you would literally. I can remember he did it at Old Trafford. He cut in on his left, and I was screaming at the TV, "Why are you letting him cut in on his left?" And he smashed it in top corner, and he did it every other week. If Anthony can turn in that sort of player that just can get on his left and whip the shot in, and it's a goal, I'm quite happy with that. It's a different dynamic, but I was hot. I was like Dan, to be fair. I was hot on Anthony's heels until about 5 weeks ago when somebody said, stop looking at his goals and assists and start looking at his winning the ball back on the halfway line and cover for the right back. And once I watched a different perspective, I was a bit more like, right, I get why he's getting picked now. Because, like I say, he didn't do it against Liverpool, but he has been doing it for the season before.
What do you make of this comment then, Dan, going on with what you're saying there?
So, Palestri in particular, I tweeted yesterday, I hope he gets more game time because I think he's made 5 appearances this season. And of the 5 I've seen him play, I think he's got 2 assists, a goal. He genuinely, I'm going to go on a limb, but he looks like he's got that something really special about him, like with the ball at his feet as well. In terms of the wages and Rashford and everything else, I hate to mention them on this channel, but Liverpool currently have one of the top 3 players in the world who's broke their goal scoring record in 5 seasons, and he's not on more than 250 grand a week. And
he's not one of the top 3 players in the world right now.
In terms of the last 5 or 6 seasons, he's probably top 3 for sure. He's broke Liverpool's goal scoring record in 5 years. That's incredible. No matter it's hard to admit, but it's absolutely incredible. Is he got the most goals ever in a Premier League season as well in that period?
2.
Salah?
And if Rashford carries on, he might be making the Man United one in 5 weeks.
Yeah, so no, and he's at Liverpool.
I think Ser's in a 38 game season.
Yeah, it's the highest in the 38. I think Shearer's got the highest in a 42, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he wants to play for Liverpool, and he could have gone and got 500k at Paris Saint-Germain. He could have got 500k at Real Madrid. He could have gone elsewhere, but he stayed at Liverpool because he wanted to break records, and 250k is enough. There probably is performance bonuses in there, qualification for the Champions League, winning the Champions League, etc. So if the club go to Marcus Rashford and say, we'll pay you 200 grand a week and we'll add some performance bonuses, top 4 finish, we'll net you a bonus of 2 million a season or whatever, that should be more than enough if he wants to stay at the club and break records and be a club legend. So, and I would much prefer players that say yeah to that than a player that says, if you don't pay me 500k, I'm going to go PSG. Off you pop then. Because we don't need it. We've had that type of player, and we don't need that type of player. And I genuinely think Ten Hag will put his foot down and say, for example, if Qatar owners come in and they find a way of getting Mbappe through the door, Ten Hag's not going to want him on 1.25 million a week. It's going to cause massive issues in the dressing room because everyone's going to be knocking on his door. Why don't I get paid this much money? So I think it's a good idea to sell it out a bit. I use Fernandez all the time as the example. He came on, was it 50k a week? Really low wages for a player of his quality. He earned a new deal within a season. The club was happy to give it to him. He's still only on about 140k a week, 150k a week. So, and that's the way it should be. The Garnacho one in particular got me because people were saying 75k, 80k. He was winning a youth trophy last season. In terms of contract, what has he actually done in a United shirt to deserve 80 grand a week? Not enough for me. You need to do it.
Won us the game against Fulham. He got the winning goal in like the 90th minute.
It's too much too quickly.
I
made when we signed Sancho, I had my reservations because doing it in Germany is not doing it in the Premier League. And I don't like that it's turned out the way it has and he struggled a little bit. But it was always too much of a transfer fee and it was always too much money. And I always went back to Ronaldo. When we sold Ronaldo for 80 million, he was the best player in the world. And he didn't have a ceiling. And we seem to be what's the average going rate this at the minute? 100 million for Enzo Fernandez, 100 million. Bellingham, 120 million. It seems to be 100 million mark. It's madness. Some of the money that's been tossed around.
If Garnacho was to get sold by United, how much do you think in this day and age he goes for? Because I'm saying about 30-40 million, which I think is ridiculous.
Who's that?
Garnacho. If he was to get sold in the summer, like I know he won't. I'm saying
we've been since Fergie and Gill resigned or retired or whichever way you want to put it. We have been absolutely woeful as a selling club. So bad. I can remember Liverpool selling Danny Ward for 25 million and being absolutely baffled at how they'd done it. Dominic Solanke, 20 to 30 million to Bournemouth. How are they getting this money for these players?
15 million.
Yeah, and then we're selling
James Garner for 13 million.
Exactly. James Garner for 30 million seems a ridiculous amount considering we could literally do with him right now. And he was the only sellable asset because we've just been poor at it. Ed Woodward leaving is one of the biggest blessings for this club. And hopefully, I mean, Garnacho, just off promise, if he was playing for Real Madrid, people would be quoted 100 million because of 10 games. And that's the way it seems to go. I think we just need to calm down a little bit in terms of price. Like, I don't know, the Napoli forward, I can never pronounce his name, but 150 million for him.
Who's that?
I can't remember. I don't know his name. Napoli forward, Oshiman or something like that.
Victor Osimhen, yeah.
Yeah. So 150 million. I've only seen him have one good season. That seems mental. Absolutely mental.
No, he has been quite consistent for the last 2 or 3 seasons. But I think Napoli bought him I think it was Lille that they bought him for about 70 million. So that's why his price is probably so high, because they'll want to make a profit.
Yeah, well, I mean that seems mental to me. 70 million for a guy I've not really heard of. But like I said, I don't follow that side of the football, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think the club needs a much better structure. It's definitely what we fell down on in the last 10 years, for sure.
Well, I mean, Man U winners has put it here again. This talk is naive idealism. The reality is that top players are getting up to 7 figures per week. Other lesser benchmark their salary on that. And I think the point that you're not necessarily grabbing there is that we're talking about players that have established themselves over many, many years. You know, Ronaldo commands that amount and Messi, because they have been at the top of their game for as long as they have been. So they're always going to get that, because you know you're going to get that money back in shirt sales and people coming to watch them in the twilights of their career. I don't think there's anybody that we would necessarily say at Manchester United yet who's made it to such a point that they are a top player who's going to command that level of money. And even if they did, it's not necessary. You don't need it. Footballers are more than handsomely enough paid.
To jump in, PSG would be a prime example of this. How many top earners have they got at the club?
Loads. That's what they were saying. They've knocked out of
Europe. What have they won? Because they've not won the Champions League. So it's. I mean, I get it. Mbappe is a quality player. He's on 1.5 million a week or whatever it is. Would I want him disrupting the dressing room with that figure and making 10 other players want that money? Nope.
But I think what Jarvis says here, football's about money. If we don't pay, some other club will do. So the question is, we want to compete. I think that is the question. Do we want to compete? Not do we, as in the club, want to compete. Do the players want to compete? If they're just turning up wanting to pick up a paycheck, a la Pogba, Sanchez, some of these people, then we're never going to compete, because they're quite happy getting their money. Paul Pogba's gone to Juventus. He still hasn't played a game for them since he left us. That's how long it's been.
2 substitute appearances.
Oh, 2 substitute appearances.
And then
he's
he was
really
dropped
working
for
hard for his millions, isn't he? yet he's one of the top played players in the world that Man U winners would be talking
And he
about.
couldn't be bothered turning up, could he?
No, he's late for a meeting, so he was dropped for yesterday's game.
Yeah, imagine
You
that,
can
having a
take
manager
Pogba
that's
out of Manchester, but
rules.
you can't take Pogba out of Pogba.
So, yeah, I'm not convinced.
I
I was going to
tweeted
convince me this argument.
Yeah, that's where I got it from, Dan.
Seems playing devil's advocate, Rashford's amazing form in the same year that he has to renew his contract is fishy. Hopefully he doesn't hold the club to ransom. He doesn't strike me as that type of guy. I've got to be honest. He really doesn't. And Titus saying Victor Osimhen won't be a good investment for United. Very injury prone. And this particular season is crazy for him, but he won't keep it consistently. And apparently, a very, very strange figure. Mbappe is on £893,000 a week. And if that's the case, then Mbappe can stay at PSG and win Sweet FA. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Anyway, you wouldn't have guessed it. We are actually reviewing the Real Betis game. And we've got to talk about Bruno Fernandes, John. He had a tricky game against Liverpool. He was in the news for all the wrong reasons, not liking the waving of the arms and all that sort of jazz. What did you make of his performance and that rather fantastic header from Luke Shaw's corner?
It was very good. I thought he got by example yesterday. I think it was, I won't criticise him for his performance against Liverpool and his antiques, but we know that's part of his game, and I'm not a big fan of it, but you got to accept it. And for me, it was the perfect response, and it was pleasing that so many of the players that were criticised following the Liverpool debacle, that they proved the point. And like you say, Luke Shaw was criticised. He got the assist. Bruno with a brilliant header, and I personally would have put money on Bruno scoring last night after the Liverpool game, because that shows the character of the team again. That bouncing back from adversity, Anthony scoring a brilliant goal as well. But for me, yes, it was a very good header from Bruno. I could maybe say the keeper should have done a bit better, perhaps. Now, but for me, I think he led by example. He created loads of chances, set up a couple of goals. If Anthony hadn't been so selfish with that chance, we could have had another goal, which was a pass from Bruno. But for me, we got by example, and I think overall it was a very good performance from him.
Absolutely. Dan, Red Devils Dan, that is. Big question for you on this one. What did you make of all of this furore about Bruno Fernandes? Do you care that he goes around and is quite expressive? Do you listen much to what he had to say during the week, where he was explaining why he did that? How do you sort of rank Bruno Fernandes in this team?
Well, let's just say since the time we've played Liverpool, I've been blocked by a lot of Bruno haters. Let's just say that, because people saying that he's petulant, people say he's a crybaby, he's not a good leader and all that jazz. Bruno's been a petulant child pretty much his entire career. If you've watched him when he used to play in the Italian league before he went to Sporting Lisbon, he was throwing himself on the floor then. Okay, Bruno Fernandes, it's part of his game. Bruno's our Mona. He's our little crybaby Magnifico, let's call him that. And for me, I don't care. Like, I think what people seem to forget as well, that people have very short memories, that since Bruno Fernandes has joined Manchester United in the 2020 season, United have just been on the rise since then. And I think people forget is how crap we were before Bruno came. Like, we were having Jesse Lingard, Andreas Pereira, and Juan Mata playing in that position. And then as soon as Bruno comes in for probably a bargain nowadays, which was, I think it was about 50 million that we bought him for. Who
made that signing?
Pardon?
Who made that signing?
Ed Woodward.
Oh, behave yourself. Which manager?
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
There you go. I like him to get a little bit of credit because he doesn't get enough, I feel. Go on, carry on.
But I honestly think that Bruno has shown leadership roles. He speaks multiple languages. I mean, he speaks Italian, he speaks Portuguese, obviously, speaks English, and he speaks Spanish. So that's pretty much all of our players. like nationalities and languages. So I think that the fact that you've got a captain that can speak every single language and be able to communicate with all your players and direct where they're going and stuff, I think people just blew out of proportion because losing to Liverpool 7-0 was a freak result. But I can guarantee that people wouldn't have blown it out of proportion if it was like, I don't know, Aston Villa or Brighton slamming us that score. I think the reason people cared so much was because it's against our biggest rivals in Liverpool. I think that's why it was like probably one of the worst things that's happened in our club's history, because being battered 7-0 is never a good result. But it's like, but everyone's acting like it's happening every single week. It was our first loss in like 22 games or something. It's crazy, and people just went back to the ways of last season under Ranić and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like, we were getting pumped all the time, and for me, I think that we're not like United anymore, and fans need to realise that this is Erik ten Hag's Manchester United, and he would have learned so much from that game against Liverpool, and I can guarantee he will not let it happen again. But being with Bruno Fernandes, I honestly think the critics, he's had critics since day one of being a Manchester United. People saying he's a pen merchant, people saying he's petulant. I love Bruno. He's one of my favourite players, and I think he's been one of our most important players this season, especially stepping up and being a captain.
Other Dan, Bruno or Bruno? Yes.
Brew, yes. I've had the same experience as Dan this week, to be honest. A lot of people criticising him, and I genuinely don't think Gary Neville helped him at the weekend. So there was an incident where he gets hit on the chin, and he actually does get hit on the chin. He goes down soft, but he does, and he said, "Oh, it's embarrassing." And I think when it was 3-0, Robertson got kicked on the arm, went down holding his face, and nothing was said. And there was the whole, he has to be subbed. It turns out he never asked to be subbed. He was asking whether he was playing through the middle or Elanga was going to play through the middle. And it just fed the media narrative. He's always been whiny. He's always been a bit of a shithouse. And every club needs it. Every club needs that player. And I know a few Liverpool fans that obviously dislike him to high heavens. And I just always say the same thing every time. You've got Robertson, who is exactly the same. He'll dive. He'll get in the ref's ear. He'll give you a kick. And if Liverpool are going to go and turn it over in Real Madrid, they're going to need all the players to do that, because Real Madrid are going to do it. And when we play another Spanish team in the next round, if we get them, we need Bruno to do it again, because it's just part of football. So I think it was the perfect response from Fernandes. Absolutely perfect. He was amazing all over the pitch. And just thank God we didn't see him on a wing. He is so wasted on the wings. And was it 5 chances created, 2 big chances yesterday? Goal and assist.
Yeah,
seven big chances.
Oh, 7. I thought he was going 5 and 2 then with the other bit. That's 7.
Yeah, so no, it was literally, I think if he could have wrote it before the game, that's what he would have wanted. 100%.
Well, there we go. So from Bruno, we have to talk about it, because before we go in on what I was going to mention about Mr. Weghorst, let's take a couple of moments to just appreciate that we brought on McTominay, we brought on Pellistri. We just take a minute to just say how good Pellistri was in the lead up to that goal, because he looked like he was running up a dark alley, turned around the defender, looks like he's going to run out of pitch, somehow keeps it in, pulls it back. McTominay pulls the trigger, smashes it against the goalkeeper, and Weghorst finally gets the ball in the back of the net. Before we start talking about anything that could be negative, is not the greatest thing about that goal the level of emotion that we saw from the man after that? Because he showed, number one, that he cares, and I don't think that's ever been in doubt. I don't think anybody dislikes Wout. I think he's in a situation where he's a bit like Diego Forlan. We all wanted him to succeed.
That's a bit before my time.
Exactly. Before your time, never mind.
He wasn't done. He got 2 at Anfield. Legend.
Yeah, when Dudek dropped the ball between his legs.
How long ago was this? How long ago? I've heard of David Folland, but I'm just like, how long ago was this by any chance?
2002.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born then.
But
unfortunately, I was.
The lad went about 20 odd games before he finally scored. It was a thing. Will the striker?
I was actually at the game that because he scored his first goal with a 5-2 win against Maccabi Haifa penalty. Then a month later, he got his first goal against Villa, which was an equaliser. And then the week after, I was at the game where he scored a late winner against Southampton. The top goal, he took his shirt off, he couldn't put it back on. So 20 years.
And then he ended up going off to Villarreal and scored a couple of goals for them and became this. I think it was Villarreal anyway.
I think he always seems to play well against Liverpool. He always played well against Liverpool.
By the way, when he left Atletico Madrid, he was one of the best strikers in Europe for about 2 seasons.
Exactly. We're all like, where was this guy when we had him?
I think he got played the tournament at the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah, he turned it on when he left.
Yeah. Exactly. So, with that in mind, talk to me about the Wout goal in your life. It was, for me, quite beautiful actually to watch that. If you can describe such a thing, because this is what we've been wanting in this club, this sort of passion and this sort of determination. And I do have to give him that. I mean, John, would you not agree? It was just amazing.
I have to say, I think it was the most Weghorst goal he could have scored. Like, he'd even hit it cleanly, it hit his shin, and it bounced against the floor and went in the far corner. It was the most Weghorst type of goal he could have scored, and it was brilliant.
Oh, Dad, I'm trying to be positive first.
I know, but I love Weghorst. I love Weghorst a lot, and I mean, when we lost to Liverpool, I lost my head, and I turned around and was like, Cody Gakpo, it was Ten Hag's priority sign. It's come to bite us in the backside. And what did the Glazers go and do? They went and got 6'6" Dutch donkey who was getting an air transplant to get his teeth whitened. But I love Weghorst a lot, and he tried his hardest. He is brilliant, and the passion's there. So, I said that if Weghorst could score more than 8 goals in his loan spell, then I consider that a successful loan spell. And that was when he first signed.
John, what was your thoughts about Wout's goal?
Yeah, it was a poacher's goal, wasn't it? So I do agree with Danny. He did. He does work hard. I think he does deserve it for his work effort and everything. Obviously, he's not the cleanest striker with the ball or anything, and but in fairness to him, he has put his boot through a few of the chances, and they're not gone in. So it's like you'd be amazed by the amount of times you scuff the ball and it goes in the corner. And for me, it was nice. I was getting a bit frustrated with him. It's like, oh, you got to stop burying these chances. You really do. And he was a big culprit for that. But hopefully now that he's got the monkey off his back now, hopefully he might score maybe 3 or 4 more before the season's up and that. And I think now that, we know with goal scorers, don't they? They can go a while, and then as soon as they get one, that might trigger, a scoring one. Then hopefully that happens for Weghorst. I don't think he'll score loads between now and the end of the season, but hopefully it'll be the start of him, maybe game 4 or 5 before the season. But yeah, the celebration, you can't help but not have heart. He really cherished that moment, and it was nice that he managed to get that moment, have that personal moment to himself, and he's finally scored at Stretford End.
And that will endear, won't it, Dan, Wout to the fan base? But equally, this is what was put very early in the show today. I didn't deliberately didn't put it up because I knew we were going to come to it a bit later on. But Wout Weghorst, for all of his passion, should not be playing for United beyond this season. We're not Tries FC. He shouldn't even be in the squad. He had 5 opportunities that I counted that were of decent note. And as Dan said there, the goal that he did score, it comes off his shin, hits the ground and bounces in. Right place, right time, did all of that. What do you make of this Weghorst situation? Because I'm like a grandfather clock. I'm just swinging from left to right. 1 minute I'm like, oh, I love him, he's brilliant. The next minute I'm like, why can't you get the ball on that net? What's your take? I know I've mentioned this quite a few times actually since I've been hosting these shows. But, I mean, he's not the answer. But is it right that we played him instead of playing the Palestri, a Garnacho, somebody else that we could potentially have brought up from the youth?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm a massive fan of Weghorst, because, again, you have to sort of go away from what you would expect from your striker, in terms of, I said when we signed him, 5 goals this season would be a success because it's 5 goals we wouldn't have had without him. But he's so integral to what Ten Hag wants. You saw it against Liverpool. He wasn't up front, so we didn't press very well. The communication wasn't there. But the pressing yesterday, he starts the press, and then everyone starts to follow, and he's very good at putting the pieces in behind him. Now, I think we're being a bit harsh on him on yesterday, to be honest. He was offside for a big chance that he missed. He scored a header that was a really good finish. Sorry, was it chest? Did he chest it in?
Yeah, he chested in. Another Weghorst type goal.
He was fortunate for the goal in terms of the ricochet and that, but he's putting himself in these places, and now he's got a goal. Hopefully, it will kick on a bit. Still, don't think he'll go on and score 8 or 9. I think it'd be good to be 4 or 5. But he's so integral to the way we play. When he plays, Rashford seems to have a lot more space when he's running off Weghorst. It just seems to work. And Palistri, by the way, did exactly what Dan would have been shouting at Anthony to do, probably all game, by taking the ball and running with it. But yeah, I love it. I think he's brilliant. I was reading something today. He's made 15 starts in the last 2 months, which is the same amount as Anthony Martial has in 2 seasons. And that, more than anything, is so important because you've got that focal point that's going to be there every game, and he's not injured. He always gives 100%. Is he the long-term solution of next season? Probably not. I think everyone would agree. Probably not. But he's definitely going to do us a job till the end of the season, and a positive job.
Just something to say about Weghorst as well is that I think that it kind of screams of the way Erik ten Hag likes to play football. He likes to have that tall, physical striker that loves to press. And I feel like that's what he'll be looking for in the summer. So maybe a player like Harry Kane is what Ten Hag is looking for. I mean, I'm not Ten Hag's. I love the Ten Hag. I mean, Harry Kane's biggest fan because I just think that the mentality isn't there. But yeah, I just think that I back Ten Hag. So whoever he signs, but Weghorst for me is brilliant, and I just can't knock the guy. I just think that he is frustrating at times, and I think that he does struggle with link-up play. But again, the guys plays for Burnley. I honestly think that United will sign him in the summer as well for a low fee, because I think that as a backup, because no doubt Martial's out the door, and I don't think that United would really be able to sign 3 different strikers in one summer. Maybe we can get, maybe even if Charlie McNeil or another striker maybe comes through the youth, and then we get a established number 9 like a Harry Kane or something. But I think that it's like the Sabitzer situation as well. I would sign Weghorst and Sabitzer despite how they perform, because they already know the club inside and out, and it's not like how Nottingham Forest did it by signing like 19 players and they all don't gel together. So at least you will have players that have already been here and understand how Ten Hag wants them to play.
Interesting points. Jarvis doesn't think Kane and Bruno would work to occupy the same space. This is a shout I didn't expect to see today. Ty's been talking about our need for a striker. I really think if Alex Ferguson is our manager today, I think Ivan Toney would be heading to Manchester United, which is a shout that I wouldn't necessarily have come up with all by myself, but it's quite a good one.
I think, I think it's all to do with that betting stuff, isn't it?
I genuinely
think I'd happily have him at United, but you can't sign him while this thing is overshadowing him. And so for me, if he's all clear in that, then by all means I would look at signing him. But I think the rumours are he's probably going to get some kind of ban for what he's done. So
it'll be a hefty ban, I think, John, as well.
Yeah, probably. So it might be a world record.
Do you think Tony's put a bet on that he's going to get banned?
Definitely.
Well, He's not here to defend himself, so probably not. But we'll see. John,
Well, as long
as
as he does well for the next week, because he's in my FPL, I've captained him for my FPL, so he needs to do really well because Brentford got a double game week.
Yeah, but as a footballer, he's a very talented footballer.
Yeah. John, I was going to ask, because you've watched Manchester United for a long time, and you've seen them. You're not like young Dan here, who's only really been around since Rooney and doesn't understand.
Excuse me, I've been through the pitch with Moyes, Mourinho. Don't you dare!
Was Rooney not playing under Moyes? I think I might have.
He was.
Stu's not on him. So
he doesn't remember the likes of William Prunier. Legends such as him.
But the reason I wanted to get you footballers we had, like David Bellion.
Try to ask me a question, mate.
Go
on. Jarvis has put here. Weghorst isn't easy on the eye. He's by no means a typical United striker, but he's so integral for us at the moment. Is this the thing? It's the fact that he's nothing like we're used to ever watching at Manchester United. Dare I say it, a bit like the Andy Carroll, Peter Crouch sort of role sometimes.
A bit of respect.
Is this the thing? Is this the thing, John? Is this what it is, that we're just so not used to it that it's bamboozling and frying our minds? Because we're used to the likes of, careful now, Dan, you might not get all of these, Andy Cole, Dwight York, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Robbie van Persie, all of these sorts of people. Is it that?
Yeah, I think he's certainly got unique capabilities and that. He does put himself about. Obviously, I think he'd be very good. Someone said the other day, I think for someone like Leicester down the league, like maybe Nottingham Forest, a team like that, he'd be a very good first choice strike for them. I don't think he's that level for United. However, I do think he does offer he can be a nuisance for defenders. Okay, he's only scored a couple of goals, but look at the goals he scored we've scored as a team through his movements and that. Like the West Ham FA Cup game the other week, it was an own goal, but it was through him putting pressure on the defender. Fred gained that goal, wasn't it? Right at the end against West Ham, through him, pressing that. And clearly the stats say that in terms of pressing, he's one of the best out there for putting pressure on the defence and that. So for me, it is interesting that he does offer some qualities. And that he's a bit like, he's not a striker, but, like Marouane Fellaini, for example. He's just very, not, he's not your typical, United player in that he isn't, a flair player. He's not easy on the eye, but, at certain things, put the ball in the air to him, he'll cause havoc, he'll elbow defenders and everything. That's what he's good at. And for me, Weghorst, for me, I would like to see him, if we need a goal with 20 minutes to go, for example, maybe when Martial, if he does come back and he does start a couple of games, maybe throw Weghorst on with 20 minutes to go, where, maybe when we're putting balls into box and that might be the time when he's possibly at his biggest strength possibly. So, because every game he's played so far, he's started. And I don't think that's typically his game. So, for me, it would be interesting to see if Martial does come back and he does come off the bench. Maybe then we might see a slightly different Weghorst, which is a bit more productive. But I think he's not easy on the eye, but I do think we'd be worse off without him if we didn't have him in January.
Fair point here by Jarvis again. He's put divided in the same way as Fellaini. Doesn't fit the typical United, but I loved Fellaini. I think if you put Weghorst in that same sort of team when the United players weren't achieving, I don't think we'd have this same question necessarily. But I think because he's up against some players that are achieving and are performing, that's probably where the question is coming from. Paul has put that Weghorst only here because the Glazers wouldn't spend any money, which is probably true. Why would you go out and spend 100 million on a player when you can have that in your pockets thanks to the sale Jazz? So who knows? But equally, doesn't necessarily mean that just because we have the money that we would have necessarily been able to buy.
Well, the Qataris are flying into the UK tonight, so hopefully it'll come soon.
Well, we shall see. There's 3 through to the next round. I want to ask you all very quickly, as a last question on the review, who would you have picked as your man of the match?
Bruno.
Bruno.
I'll go Bruno.
So there we go. 3 Brunos it is. Congratulations, Bruno. Right, I just wanted to have a quick look at the Southampton game that's coming up, and there are some rather large statistics to throw out there. As far as Manchester United go, we have taken 36 points from losing positions against Southampton, which is more than any other team, apart from Liverpool, who managed to do the same thing against Newcastle. So when we're behind against Southampton, not always a bad thing. Southampton haven't won against us in the last 14 games, 7 draws, 7 wins for United since that 1-0 loss at Old Trafford. Marcus Rashford has scored 7 home games in the Premier League consecutively, with only Chris Rooney doing that for 8 games and Ronaldo for 10. So if he can get another one, he will tie up with Mr. Rooney. And Southampton, under their new manager, though, have won 2 out of 3 games. And that's as many games as they won in the last 17 games under Hasenhüttl and Jones, which says quite a bit about a little bit of a manager bounce there. What do you think about the Southampton game? How do you see it going? And we'll be coming out of this match with the 3 points, ready for another challenge at getting into the top 4. John?
Yeah, I think you got to give praise for Southampton. They have picked up a couple good wins. They won away at Chelsea recently, and they won up to Leicester as well. So it will be a tricky game. So you can't take these things for granted. However, we are at home, and as we know, we are very strong at home and that. And I would expect us to win the game and that. But like I say, you got to show a bit of respect for Southampton, and it's also factoring in that they're fighting for their lives, and I think it's very tight down the bottom as well. In terms of, I think there's only like 3 points separating like 20th and 16th or 15th place, I think. So it's very tight. So if anyone was win, they could come out of it and that. So for me, you gotta be where is Southampton and that. That being said, our home record should hopefully see us home in that. And obviously, following last weekend, if you could perhaps pick a team to face at home, Southampton won't be far off that choice. So, but hopefully we got a win, and I'm confident following the win on Thursday. Hopefully we should get the 3 points against Southampton. But yeah,
absolutely. Red Devils down. It's been it's a tricky one down there, as they say. Southampton on 21 points, level with Bournemouth. Bournemouth just with the worst goal difference of the two. But there you've got Everton 22, Leeds 22, West Ham 23, Leicester 24. It is very tight, like you say, from 15th, 16th downwards. They know a good result could drag them out of the mire and set them up on a little bit of a run. Equally, we know that 3 points takes us a little bit further away, potentially from Spurs and Liverpool. It's all to play for, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like that. I mean, Bournemouth last week is a great example with Arsenal about how you can't, no matter. I think this is why the Premier League is the greatest league in the world, because you can't count out any team, in my opinion. And I think that no matter what game you have, you're never going to always have an easy game. There's always going to be a moment in the game where you're troubled. And I think Southampton, I mean, like you've said, they've won 2 in the last 3 under this new manager. So they're doing well. I do know that they have one of their important players that they signed in January. I'm trying to remember what his name was. Is it Alvarez? I think it is. He got injured by celebrating doing a knee slide. So it was, I think Alcaraz, it was. Alcaraz, yeah. So he got injured and he's been quite well. He's scored 2 in the last 5 games for him. So he seems to be doing well, especially under this new manager.
He also should have been sent off.
Yeah, so that's another good point. But he seems like to be a signing that's recently come to the Premier League and kind of, not I wouldn't say hit the ground running because he's quite in a bit of a poor performing team. But for Southampton standards, I think he's playing quite well for him. He's one of their more dangerous type players. But apart from the likes of probably James Ward-Prowse, probably Bella Kotchap, like these players who are quite tough players to deal with, I think United have got this in, and I do feel like it is going to be a tough game. But I am going to go for a 3-1 victory to Manchester United. I know you're not doing score predictions yet, but I just think that if the lot starts, I think it's 3-1. But I think if Wan-Bissaka plays, it's 3-0.
Interesting. Down number 2. Good point here from Paul about giving James Ward-Prowse any free kicks. Do we need to sort of handcuff Fred a little bit and, just tell him
as well? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it can be quite bad, but Fred is.
Don't blame
every
it,
time
Tommy.
I see away a free kick, I know it's Fred. Even when he's not on the pitch, I think it's going to be him. I feel like he's just ran on and taken one out. Go, Fred, stop it! What do you reckon? How do you see this game against Southampton going? Could it be that we're going to get mugged off by a silly set piece?
We need to be careful because that's obviously what they're going to set up to do. I hope he sets up the same way as he did against Betis in terms of Fernandes deeper, Fred a bit more forward. The amount of times we scored from Fred's forward press this season has been quite good. So I'll hopefully stick to that because any free kick in or around the box and we're in massive trouble. Is it one more free kick to overtake David Beckham as well? Or he's really close to David Beckham. Yeah, and we don't want that to be happening at Old Trafford. So... No, I think we should have enough. I genuinely don't think he's going to change too much for the Southampton game. I think it'll be pretty much the same team that he puts out. I just hope Wan-Bissaka starts over Dalot. I think he's earned it. I genuinely think he's playing better at the minute. Dalot looks like he's just suffering a bit with that injury that he had at the World Cup. But no, I think we'll have enough for Southampton. We just got to be careful. There is no easy games in the Premier League. It just doesn't happen, does it? Who would have put Bournemouth 2-0 up at Arsenal? It just
exactly that.
Yeah, it's an anomaly. So we need to take it serious. And to be honest, after what happened at the Liverpool game, I don't think any of them players are going onto the pitch without some serious motivation to not let anything silly happen again.
Absolutely. And Titus, I think we seem to have
nice.
a bit of a two-legged affair here. Because he's gone Southampton 0, United 7. United 7, Southampton 0.
Oh, we did beat them 9-0.
9-0, yeah.
Didn't we?
Did you have 2 red cards in that game, though?
Yeah,
but
still 9-0.
Still got a score.
Bless him. He's changing it around, obviously, because United are at home, which is fair enough. But we got the gist of it. A 7-0 win would be absolutely wonderful. Down at the top, it's already gone 3-1 to United. What do you think down at the bottom?
I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0, okay. Big Johnny K?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 as well. Goals from Rashford and I'll back Weghorst to get another.
That would be nice. I think we could go out there and, again, like you said, a bit of a statement. I don't quite think it'll be 7-0, but I wouldn't be surprised if we came away with it, a nice little 4-0 win. Tuck that under the belt, ready for.
By the way, it should be stressed that last night was our biggest win under Ten Hag. It's only the second time we've scored 4 this season, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So that 4-2 against Villa in the League Cups. Yeah.
Jarvis, I can't remember his first name, but his surname was Sellis. I want to say Ruben Sellis, but I can't guarantee. I only read his name once, and that was it, Sellis. So Selles, that was who he was. After that, couldn't tell you. Connor's gone 3-1 to United. Paul Greaves, he's going for a big old game, 5-1 there. So that would be quite good if that came true. Obviously, we're not trusting De Gea to keep yet another clean sheet. Past Peter Schmeichel's record. 11 points to make up on Arsenal and on 8 on City. Do you still feel like we're fighting for the league here? Fair play to you. We're winning 10 of the remaining games. City and Arsenal will drop points. We're winning the league. Screenshot. I think Connor's already screenshotted. Ruben. Did I say Ruben? I feel like I said Ruben. Did I say Ruben?
Yeah, you
I
did,
didn't I?
Yeah.
Come on. So there we go. Isn't he an interim manager? I think so, just till the end of the season. But
Yeah, he is.
a bit like we had Ralphie boy. But yeah, this is a bit more like it. Focus on the 3 points. It's beyond squeaky bum time. It's not that squeaky. I don't think we're not really fighting for the title. Sellis was caretaker for one game, then Nathan James took over. Now Sellis is back in charge. Well, there you go. You see, we get all the information here eventually from our crack team of Googlers. I'm going to say because that's probably what it was. But yeah, I think we've got a great game coming up against Southampton. It should be a really, really good game. We're not fighting for the league. Let's be brutally honest. Now that ship has not just left the harbour; it's almost pulling up in its destination. But definitely the top 4. Definitely the top 4. Guys, thank you so much for popping on. It's been a marathon for you guys. It's been a bigger marathon for me because I've just finished off the Wounds channel as well. So in a minute, I'm going to go and get myself yet another drink because a little bit dry, I've got to tell you. It's been cracking having you on. John, thank you. I know you've not been feeling too well just off the back.
Yeah, I managed to get through it all. Thank you very much. So
we hope you're going to feel better soon. Where can people find you should they want to hear more of your mutterings and rants?
Well, I don't actually tweet my own views that much, but it's just under there. It's at John_Kermo2.
He's still going, bless him. 40-1. Well, I'll tell you what, go and stick a tenner on it, and then you can use that 400 quid to come and visit me and put it in my face because we're not trying. The most positive person in the world I am. There's no chance we're winning the league this season. We've got more chance of Alex Ferguson returning as manager. So there we go. Dan at the bottom. You called RP Field. We call you Dan because it's your name. Why are you called RP Field and where can people find you?
Yeah, so it's just my channel name for Twitch. So it stands for Ready Player. So I don't know whether it's a book series. It's fantastic.
I've also seen the film. Ready Player
see,
One.
the book is so much better than the film. I know it's bad to say stuff like that because people prefer films, but the book is brilliant. The film is good, but the book is better. So it's just there. Obviously on Twitter and Twitch mainly. Massive fan of Twitter. It's my favourite place.
There we go. And of course, Dan. We welcome Dan over here and he helped us out this week by hosting the preview to Betis. And if we're going to win all those games 4-1, then we'll probably sack Connor and stick you in just for that reason, if nothing else. But you've got your own channel as well. So tell us a little bit more about what you tend to do on there.
So, yeah, my Red Devils TV, I just consist of daily content, just pretty much me. What I do on here, just ranting about Manchester United, making YouTube shorts and just trying to become the biggest Manchester United fan channel in the world. But I'm a long way off to go for that. But yeah, that's the ambition. But yes, I just post daily content all about Manchester United. So if you're interested in that type of content, then obviously hit me a subscribe. I think I'm like 10 subscribers away from 600 subscribers. So I'm getting close.
Well, there we go then. Maybe we can give him a little follow there if you want to hear a little bit more of that. I tried to make some YouTube shorts the other day, but I didn't have enough elastic to finish them off. So never mind. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to end it with a dad joke because it's just kind of how we go, really, isn't it? Let's have a cracking weekend. It's going to be superb. What have we got coming up? Nothing tomorrow because it's Saturday that I'm aware of. So there shouldn't be anything. But Sunday, obviously, Connor will be back where we'll be reviewing what has happened at Southampton, all of the wreckage from there as well. Monday night, we'll be back on the WFC channel where we'll be talking all about that big game. And if you haven't found out, we're going to throw it out to you there. The women's side are doing really well. They're top of the WSL. They're up against Chelsea, their main rivals. So even if you don't pay attention to women's football, Sunday is the day to definitely do it. 12:30 kickoff. Keep an eye on those Red Devils because they're 100% gunning for the title and could definitely do with a bit of support. We'll see you next time. Thanks all. See you soon.